Commander Jason Torres stepped off the transport shuttle onto the crystalline platform of Station Aurelius, the diplomatic hub floating in neutral space between 47 sovereign systems. His boots clicked against the glowing surface as he adjusted his dress uniform, fingers fumbling with the collar that suddenly felt too tight. "Relax," said Ambassador Hendricks, walking beside him with the ease of someone who had done this 1,000 times. "You're just here as ceremonial guard. Stand straight, look impressive. Don't speak unless spoken to." Jason nodded, though his stomach churned. 3 weeks ago, he'd been managing supply routes on the frontier. Then came the summons. Report to Aurelius for diplomatic detail. No explanation. No context. Just orders. The corridor opened into a massive hall where representatives from dozens of species mingled. Towering insectoids conversed with crystalline beings. Aquatic creatures floated in hovering spheres. The air thrummed with translation devices, converting thousands of languages into coherent sound. "She arrive in 10 minutes, Hendricks said. "Remember, humans are the newcomers here. We've only been part of the galactic community for 30 years. Most of these civilizations have been spacefaring for millennia. We're still proving ourselves. Who exactly am I guarding?" Jason asked. Hendricks gave him an odd look. "You weren't briefed?" "They said it was need to know." The ambassador's expression shifted to something between amusement and concern. "Her name is Lyra. That's all most people call her. She's the Arbiter." Jason waited for more explanation, but Hendricks had already turned away, greeting a delegation of reptilian diplomats. A chime echoed through the hall. Conversation ceased. Every being present turned toward the far entrance. She entered without fanfare. Lyra was humanoid, perhaps 6 feet tall, with skin that seemed to shimmer between bronze and gold. Her eyes were an impossible violet, and her hair moved as if underwater despite no breeze. She wore simple robes of deep blue, carrying no weapon, no badge of office. Nothing to indicate authority. Yet every creature in that hall bowed. Jason, following protocol, snapped to attention and bowed his head. When he looked up, she was walking directly toward him. "You're my escort?" she asked. Her voice was melodic, gentle even, but it carried weight that made Jason's chest tighten. "Yes, ma'am." "Commander Jason Torres, Earthfleet." Something flickered in her violet eyes. "Earth. It's been some time since I've worked with one of your people." She glanced at Hendricks. "He doesn't know, does he?" The ambassador shifted uncomfortably. There wasn't time for a full briefing. Lyra smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Walk with me, Commander." They moved through the hall, and Jason noticed something extraordinary. As Lyra passed, beings didn't just show respect, they showed reverence. A massive creature covered in rock-like plating lowered itself completely to the ground. A delegation of beings made of living light dimmed in her presence. "What exactly is an arbiter?" Jason asked quietly. "I settle disputes," Lyra said simply. "When 2 systems reach an impasse, when trade breaks down, when borders are contested, I mediate." "That's impressive," Jason said, meaning it. "Must take a lot of diplomatic skill." She glanced at him with an expression he couldn't read. "Something like that." They entered a private chamber where a holographic display showed a star map with 2 systems highlighted in red. Representatives from both sides stood on opposite ends of the room, neither looking at the other. "The Kelvin Consortium and the Ashmer Collective," Lyra said, her voice taking on a formal tone. "You've both submitted your grievances. I've reviewed them. Now I will hear your arguments." For the next hour, Jason stood at attention while the 2 sides presented their case. It involved mining rights, broken treaties, and accusations of territorial expansion. The arguments grew heated, voices rising, translation devices struggling to keep pace. Lyra listened without interruption. Her expression neutral dot when both sides finally exhausted their arguments, she spoke. The Kelvin Consortium will withdraw from Sectors 7 through 12. The Ashmore Collective will provide reparations equal to 15% of the disputed resources. Both parties will establish a joint oversight committee for the buffer zone. You have 30 days to implement these terms. The Kelvin representative, a being with 6 arms and crystalline eyes, bristled. That's unacceptable. We have sovereign rights to. Lyra's eyes flashed just for a moment, and the temperature in the room dropped. You will comply. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even particularly loud. But Jason felt it in his bones, a pressure that made his instincts scream danger. The Kelvin representative bowed immediately. We accept your judgment, Arbiter. The Ashmore representative did the same, and both delegations left without another word. Jason exhaled slowly. That was intense. It was mild, Lyra said, turning to face him fully. You handled it well. Most humans panic the first time they feel it. Feel what? My presence. She studied him carefully. Tell me, Commander, what do you know about galactic history? I know we're newcomers. That most species have been exploring space for thousands of years, while we've barely managed 3 decades. True enough. Lyra moved to a window, overlooking the vast expanse of space. But do you know why the galaxy has been relatively peaceful for the last 8,000 years? Jason shook his head. Because of me, she said quietly. I am not simply a mediator, Commander. I am the mediator. The only one. When I make a judgment, it stands. Not because of law or treaty, but because I enforce it. You're one person, Jason said, confused. No offense, but how could one person enforce peace across dozens of systems? Lyra turned, and for the first time, Jason saw something ancient in her eyes. I'm not a person, Commander. Not in the way you understand it. She raised one hand, and reality bent. The room didn't change, but Jason's perception of it did. He saw Lyra as she truly was a being of pure energy contained in humanoid form. Power that made stars look like candles, presence that extended across light years. He saw memories that weren't his, entire fleets disintegrating with a thought, planets pulled back from collision courses. Rebellions ended not with war, but with a single word from her lips. She was older than most civilizations, stronger than any weapon. She had stood witness to the rise and fall of empires, had prevented countless wars, had shaped the very structure of galactic society by simply existing as an unshakable force of judgment. The vision faded, and Jason found himself on his knees. Gasping, I'm sorry, Lyra said, kneeling beside him. I shouldn't have shown you so directly. But you deserve to understand. Why me? Jason managed. Why would someone like you need a guard? I don't need protection, Lyra said gently. But I've learned that showing up with representatives from the younger species helps. It reminds everyone that the galaxy is changing, that new voices matter. Your people earned their place here through courage and determination. I respect that. Jason looked up at her. You could rule the entire galaxy if you wanted. I could, she agreed. That's precisely why I don't. Power without restraint is tyranny. I exist to maintain balance, not to control. Every judgment I make carefully, knowing that my word reshapes the fate of billions. She helped him to his feet. The hardest thing about power, Commander, is choosing not to use it. For the next 3 days, Jason stood beside Lyra as she heard case after case. He watched her mediate territorial disputes, trade disagreements, even a complex situation involving a species civil war. Each time, her judgments were swift, fair, and absolute. Each time, both parties accepted her ruling without question. On the final day, as Jason prepared to return to his ship, Lyra found him in the departure bay. You did well, she said. Better than most. I just stood there, Jason replied. You stood without fear. That matters more than you think. She paused. Your species has potential, Commander. You're young, impulsive, often reckless. But you also have something many older civilizations have lost. You still believe you can make a difference. Can we? Jason asked. In a galaxy where someone like you exists? Lyra smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. Someone like me exists because species like yours do. I maintain the peace so that young civilizations have the chance to grow, to learn, to become something better. 8,000 years ago, the galaxy was tearing itself apart. I stopped it, but I can't build what comes next. That's up to all of you. She placed a hand on his shoulder, and Jason felt warmth spread through him. Go home, Commander. Tell your people what you've seen if you wish. Help them understand that they're part of something larger now. Jason boarded his shuttle, his mind reeling. As the ship pulled away from Station Aurelius, he looked back at the glowing platform where Lyra stood alone. A small figure holding the weight of an entire galaxy. Ambassador Hendricks found him staring out the viewport. So now you know. How do people live normally, knowing she exists? Jason asked. Hendricks chuckled. Same way you live knowing the sun will rise tomorrow. Some forces are so constant, you stop questioning them. He paused. Though I admit, most people don't know the full extent of what she is. That's intentional. Fear breeds resentment. Better they see her as a wise mediator than an unstoppable force. Jason nodded slowly. He thought about Earth, about humanity's short time in the galactic community, about all the species that had come before, and all those that would come after.